thank you, Rebecca, for joining us. Today, she will share with us about resilience and networking in career path. Thank you, Rebecca.
Well, thank you so much, Carmen. Great to be here with all of you today. Thanks again for joining this session. And I picked two things that I really think important. They are important in any time, but even more important as we have been facing the pandemic. So let me spend time, spend a quick second to load up the presentation. Okay, so I call it from inner peace to connecting outside. And I'm always the believer in Chinese, we have a saying that 修身齊家平天下係咪啊？就係會漏咗一個。So basically, you have to have a good handle of yourself before you can reach out. And that's the resilient part. And then we will go to networking. Now, a bit of my background. And I like using these slides to show it because it's visually it can show what are the different institutional organizations I've been to and what are the different country my journey has passed through. So I was born and raised in Hong Kong and get my first degree in accounting from Chinese University. And then spent a year in Columbia University in New York. After I graduate, I joined McKinsey & Company, management consulting firm as an analyst. After 2 years, I moved to Beijing and joined a state-owned enterprise called China Netcom and doing corporate strategy and also doing merger and acquisition for China Netcom. After that, I moved to the US, get my MBA from Stanford. Also, when I graduate, I went to T-Mobile and doing corporate strategy as well in Seattle. 14 years ago, I came to Canada. Have been with the banking industry since then. Now, resilience has been really a pillar for my career journey because when I was studying at Stanford, I thought I'm going back to Greater China. It was growing very rapidly at that time, lots of opportunities since I have already working experience in Hong Kong and China and now with my US degree. But then I also met my husband at that time, so that completely changed my plan. As all of you know, immigrant and newcomer or we're starting your whole life, it's not easy. And when I came to Canada 14 years ago, I only know one person, my husband. So I have to uproot myself, all my network, and we start everything and we build all the relationship. So definitely take a lot of resilience. And also throughout my 20 years experience, when I was at McKinsey, I joined in 1999. And within 1.5 years, 2001, as we all know, we just passed the 20-year anniversary for the 9/11. So it was a great shock. Before that, it was the dot-com bomb and bust. And when I was at CIBC, there's 2008 great financial crisis. And now, as we all know, the pandemic. So if anything constant, as we all know, crises are constant, right? And if you look back, almost every 7, 8, 9 years, there is a recession. We know it for sure. We only don't know, what we don't know is what's the trigger. The trigger is always different, right? No one would have thought the pandemic is the trigger. But, you know, we cannot avoid crisis or recession. So you have to be prepared for that. Now, it's not only me saying that, right? Nelson Mandela would say, do not judge me by my success. Judge me by how many times I fell down and got back up again. It's so true. And there's another quote that I want to offer you as a start of this presentation. Resilience isn't a single skill. It's a variety of skills and coping mechanism. Remember that it's a coping mechanism, so everyone can learn. It's almost like doing sit-up and push-up is learned to train your muscle to be more resilient. To bounce back from bumps in the road as well as failures, you should focus on emphasizing the positive. So as I talk about why resilient, right, just to put things into context, right, for many of you, you are in your 20s or late 20s. Well, as I mentioned, if every 8 to 10 years there's a crisis, there's a recession, you're going to face in your life I hope many of them, right? Like if you're gonna live till 100, you're gonna face another 8 to 10 of those, right? So you better get used to it. As you can see from this chart, right? This is showing the stock market, S&P 500 performance, but really showing what kind of event trigger a big stock market movement, right? There's the Arab War, Gulf War, 9/11, SARS, Brexit vote, COVID, right? Global financial crisis. And some of you, right, people always quote, do we ever remember in Canada, the interest rate more than 10%? I wasn't in Canada at that point, but there was such a time back in the 80s or 90s. So things could always repeat, right? And cycle tend to repeat every now and then. And in Chinese saying, I think that has a lot of wisdom. 危機危機, right? A time of danger also mean a time of opportunity. And it's so true. Remember, after the dot-com bust, some of you, maybe you were not born, but after that, that's really start the Google, Facebook heydays, right? When you look at how successful these companies are, they did not exist before the dot-com bomb and bust, right? So they kind of the survivor from the ashes, a lot of failure, but they continue to propel and be successful. Also, the current journey of Apple started around like 2005, 2004, right? And obviously after the 2008 great financial crisis, I hope all of you have seen it and remember it. There's a lot of fintech started right after the great financial crisis. So every time when there's a recession and crisis, there's always opportunity for newcomers to target the gap of the market. So don't lose sight of it. There will be a lot of companies leaving the market, but there will be new companies joining the market. That means new opportunities. Now, there's some myths about resilience. Some people say, resilient people, they just have tough skin. They don't feel it. They're numb. They're always cheerful. They're innocent. They're naive. Well, it's a personality trait. It's born with. Their parents are resilient. That's why the kid is resilient. Resilient people don't feel pain, anxious. They just detach. You only need resilience when life gets tough. They're just over optimistic. They're not analytical. They don't think about all the different kind of scenario, the bad scenario. They don't think about those. So that's why they're happy. It's not about that. Resilient, it's really about how you tackle the different situation, including good or bad, how you reframe it, how you try to recover from a bad situation and move on. So it's a learned, as I said, it's a learned muscle. We cannot get better to be more resilient. And you absolutely don't want to just practice or build your resilience when life gets tough. The idea is, like if you want to maintain a healthy lifestyle, you don't just start eating healthy when you're really sick, right? You try to build on your skills early on so you can tackle the challenges when you need with already trained muscle. Now, instead, resilient is, as I mentioned briefly, resilient people express various emotion. They don't, avoid the different emotion. And resilient is not a fixed concept, right? It's also a growth skills that you can learn to increase it. And resilience reflects the ability to flourish or even psychologically to go through them, going through different situations. And practicing resilience skills not only provides people with a confidence and fortitude that they can cope when life gets tough, but also a determination to learn from it, right? So that's the important part, and that's what the whole growth mindset is about, right? It's not only when you fail, when you have a terrible job interview or a terrible project experience. It's not only, oh, you don't cry, you don't get upset, you don't get depressed from it, but you try to learn from it, right? Like almost detach yourself and seeing, okay, that interview is a learning experience. Let me play it back and see how I can do it better. And part of the resilience is to recognize difficulty and adversity and experience it. It go back to the same point. It's not about being numb about the experience, but really learning how to cope with that and learn from it. Now, this is the most important page, and you have to listen carefully because some of this icon is a little bit cryptic. Like, you have to listen to me and to be able to know what it is. Some of those you can guess about it. And after this slide, I'm gonna ask people questions, so you have to pay attention to it. So I'm sharing my best practice to increase my resilience to all of you, and I hope you find it helpful. So I see it as 3 pillars: the physical side, the mind, and social. So on the physical side, I think that's pretty obvious, like 8 hours sleep or whatever number of hours of sleep you require. Having good sleep is important to allow you to be more resilient. That's the fundamental. And eating healthy as well, right? And as we all know, like meditation become even more important these days. We talk about mental wellness, not just physical wellness, right? And meditation has proven to help people to get better in focusing. And obviously, this one is physical activities, doing exercise. These are all I see as fundamental block to maintain your physical state in order to build your resilience. And the second part, mind. So the first one, you may not be able to guess, but it's about focus. What I find is in the past, when I was younger, I always try to multitask because this is efficient, this is productive. But also finally, when you multitask, you will get more stressed because it's quite likely when you multitask and you don't get anything done well, unless you're talking about watching Netflix while doing sit-up or watching Netflix, if you like, while eating. Those may be doable multitask. But if you're doing 2 or 3 tasks that require attention for your work, believe me, none of the tasks will get done and you end up become more stressed, right? So focus is very important. And the second one, as I talk about, reframing is important, right? So what is reframing? For example, you have had a bad project with your boss. So you can keep thinking, oh gosh, my boss never liked my work. So that's this first frame. Or you can reframe it as, oh, okay, I have several areas I need to learn from what I didn't do well in this project so that I can do a better job next time. Right. So this is about reframing and focus on the learning and how to move forward. And the third, this one, with an eye in the brain, is about self-awareness. Have a good understanding of what you're good at, right? I think in the last session we talked about sometimes doing the self-assessment is helpful. You may not know what you don't know, right? Having a bit self-discovery, because it's very easy when we face challenge. The first thinking is, oh, I'm just bad at everything, right? It's quite natural. And I'm no good in everything. But it's helpful to remind yourself, be self-aware. I know I'm not very good in Excel, but I know I'm very good in presenting, right? Always remind yourself. And having a sense of purpose, right? Having concrete goals in life and keep achieving it also help build your resilience so that when you face challenges, you can remind yourself, hey, remember, Rebecca, this project or this job, I did it terribly, but you remember my last job, I did it very well. Let's go back to, think about what I did right in my last job and see what I can apply in my current job and turn it around. And the fifth thing, this is, practice gratitude. When you're grateful, you tend to be more resilient and less blaming on the situation. So that's the second pillar, mind. And the third pillar is social. Having a good circle of friends, positive people, people have sense of purpose. I think that's very important. You become who you are with the closest 5 people I talked about in my last session, and it's so true, right? Choose your friends wisely And the other thing is, doing charity work, fundraising, or doing some volunteer is amazing things to build up your resilience, because then you see the impact of your effort on other people, and then also shift your mindset from focusing on yourself. Oh my God, I cannot get this job interview, from a broader society, right? And you start to see the challenges I have. It's really small compared with the challenges other people have. So I thought I will, before I move on to the next session, which is on the networking, I do want to give 2 minutes for people to commit based on what I talk about, the different things to build your resilience. Can you type into the chat, whoever want to participate, 2 to 3 things, 1 to 2 things, let's start with, that you want to commit to do in the next 30 days to build your resilience. I'm going to stop sharing and see what kind of commitment people are making. Don't be shy. I want to make sure this is not just a one-way presentation. I want to make sure you have some key takeaway. Remember, I talk about even like sleeping, having a good sleep, eating well, exercising. These are fundamental. There's nothing wrong. This is how you build your resilience. Any feedback, input?
Feedback. For me, I really love the eye in the brain. Maybe later I have to stick an eye here and
Remind yourself to
more
focus yourself.
self-mindfulness and more self-awareness.
Yes.
And
Thank
you know
you.
what? The more self-awareness you have, the more you're aware that what would trigger you, what will make you feel anxious, and then at that specific moment, you grow. And
It's
you
so
already
true.
know, yeah. And then once you know what trigger you give a name to that trigger, and then you name it to tame it.
That is really good. I'm gonna do that as well. So true. You have to know your enemy and
exactly.
Catch it on the head.
Yeah, that's my little bit of reflection and learning. Name it to tame it. I'm going to type it at the chat, okay? And I really love the eye in the brain. I want my third eye here.
Yeah. So anyway, I think people take time to digest it. We can circle back, and at the end we can ask people to share their thought again. But I'm gonna continue with my second part of the presentation. Now, I intentionally put resilience first because, as I mentioned, you have to have a good handle of yourself before you can reach out. So let me move to the second part. So what is networking? Okay, some of these may sound familiar. Do you know any opening in your company? Does your company need anyone with my expertise? My background is in accounting, and can you find me a job? Or who's a hiring person? Can you connect me to? Has anyone say anything like that in your networking or talking to people? Now, I would say this is not exactly networking, right? And I'm going to talk about, the what, the who, the why, the when, and the how, right? So networking, technically, is really about exchange of information and service among individual groups, institution. And the second part is also important, cultivating a productive relationship. It could be for employment and business, but remember the word exchange, right? It's a two-way dialogue. It's a two-way relationship. It's not about one side asking the other person to give, right? So that's the fundamental. Now, there are different type of networking. We talk about personal networking as alumni. There could be some LinkedIn connection, or you go to a CFA organization or whatever alumni group that you meet up with those people. There could be operational network. Once you start working, let's say you're in trade finance, then you join some groups, or as I mentioned, if you're in CFA, then you join the CFA Toronto club, or people basically they are in the same field, either banking, or you're in telecom or mining. They're in the same industry you are, as you are, and you tend to see them in a lot of the industry function. And there is a strategic network, right? Contact who may not be in your career field, but who are thought leader and have big picture thinking from your career planning. So these three type of network, they are very important. Now, let me try to make sure it doesn't cover the heading. So is networking worth it? Now, typical corporate job posting will attract 250 resume on average, right? Only 7% of the job applicants get an employee referral, but the referral end up account for 40% of all hires. So it's very important. Like you see 10 jobs out there on LinkedIn or monster.com, 4 of them will end up hiring from the referral source, right? And 72% of the people say their impression are impacted by how someone appears and do their handshake. I know right now it's a pandemic, right? So it become how you appear on the Zoom. But when we back to normal, remember your handshake is important. It tell everything about you, whether you're confident or not. You have a weak handshake or a wet handshake, right? And here, 85% of all jobs are filled through some kind of networking. So is networking worth it? Yes, I would say very much so. Now, there are key benefits. As I mentioned, it offers current opportunities and future opportunities. Not only people can do the referral to the job that you're looking for, and also they can give you some insider information or insight before you even get a chance for interview and help you to prepare better. It helps to expand your professional network, that people you can learn from, the thought leadership, the thought thinker you can follow. It cultivates long-term relationship, right? Who knows? Today you may be looking for a corporate job. In 10 years, you may want to start your own venture, right? So venture partner, maybe, start from your professional networking. And lastly, as I said, like many things, it helps. It's networking is also a muscle. The more you do, the better, right? It helps to develop your networking muscle and emotional intelligence. Why emotional intelligence? Because networking, you're gonna get reject many times. That's why I talk about the resilience before talking about networking. And how do you keep going, keep getting at it, even though you get a lot of rejection or no, right? So how do you work the professional networking funnel? So in a way, although I really see networking as a two-way cultivating long-term relationship, but if I will put it into some quantitative way to describe it, it's kind of work like a sales funnel, right? You reach out to a lot of people and not everyone going to respond to you. Some respond and some end up you can actually find time to meet them, and then among all the people you meet, some you may find, okay, I learned 1 or 2 things from Rebecca, but you know what, maybe I try to keep contacting her every year or every 2 years, but maybe a few of those people you can develop a very strong relationship because you share some common interests, share some common aspiration, or career trajectory. Now, it's not so much about the more the better, right? Later, I'm gonna talk about a framework to try to make sense of the funnel, right? Because you want to increase the conversion rate of every step, right? And it's not flowing spaghetti on the wall and see what stick. As I mentioned, you want to be thoughtful and be methodical so that you're not wasting a lot of effort in reaching out but not getting any relationship. And networking is a waste of time. Well, I'll say change your mindset. As I talk about, there's a lot of benefit in networking. It's not for me, I'm a WeChat. Well, resilient is important. Every one of us sitting here is gonna get WeChat many times until you have a few yes. So you won't see it anywhere. This is my my little way of summarizing what I have done and find work very well for me. It's a 5-step approach, ARRR. So there's some acronyms: analyze, research, reach out, report, and reciprocal, and repeat. So let's look at it. analyze, right? So I'm going to quickly go through it. Well, throughout the networking process, you have to define your objective, right? For many of you, probably finding a job right now is your objective. Also analyze your current network, right? Who is in your circle? Who are you missing? For people who just graduate, maybe most of your LinkedIn network is about your classmate. Then you have to think about how I want to diversify, right? And also look at your network. Is it all about people at the same level? They're all 20 something trying to find a job. Then maybe you want to diversify a little bit, right? And then knowing the gap of your network, and be clear about your objective before you even start the networking process. Research. So research is both about researching yourself, right? Your unique value proposition for each type of network. So don't be too humble. I know sometimes it may be daunting. Hey, you're gonna meet someone with 10 or 20 years of experience. You just graduate. You may be thinking, man, like what's my value proposition to that person who have 20 years of experience? You never know. Maybe that person is trying to develop a new product for, let's say, Gen Z, right? Let's say I have to think about product for Gen Z. I'm not Gen Z, right? I think I'm millennial, right? So by talking to someone who is a Gen Z, maybe that helped me to trigger something, some new ideas, right? So you have to make yourself useful. Always understand what the other person wants and try to offer unique perspective. Now also research your VIP or the people who you're gonna meet when you end up have the opportunity to meet that person, either in a one-on-one coffee chat or virtual chat or one-to-many kind of workshop situation. I put down the rule of 2x, right? Which is what it is I always find if I'm gonna have 30 minutes meeting with Carmen, I want to make sure I spend half an hour or 1 hour researching Carmen over the social media. I'll read what she like on LinkedIn, what she's following, what's her passion, what's her interest, what she really feel passionate about. And also research on where to meet new network, right? It's a little bit harder during pandemic, but that's the standard, like your alumni association, the industry group, and like different meetup group for entrepreneur or for tech. Like if you're interested in data analytics, you can go to meetup.com or Eventbrite to find those events and try to expand your network if you are not where you are today for the network that you want to build. So reach out. You have to set your goal every quarter. Otherwise, it's almost like sales. If you don't define some goal, you may end up not doing it, right? Set out how many people you want to reach out, and that will end up leading to how many relationships you could build or expand, how many networking events you plan to go, be purposeful, right? A little bit of etiquette do's and don'ts. I may have more in the later page, so I will skip it. But this really required discipline, and you have to set up a goal. It's almost like exercise. You cannot just say, oh, I will do it when I have time. It's not going to happen. Life get busy. If you don't set priorities, if you don't put it into your timetable, or I use Outlook or Google Calendar, it's not going to happen, right? Especially, you got to reach out quite a bit before you get response, before you can meet someone, before you can develop some strong relationship. Rapport and reciprocity. So, there's really important things you have to pay attention in building rapport, right? For example, when you set out for a meeting or virtual meeting with someone, don't be late, don't cancel on the last minute, right? Be early, right? And when it's in-person meeting, I remember when I have coffee chat with people, I usually offer to buy coffee for the people who are senior than me, right? Usually I try to line up at the Starbucks and then email that person, hey, I'm right there. I'm in the line. Do you want anything? They may not want you to buy them coffee, but offer that, right? Because that shows your appreciation of their time. and have a clear agenda, right? So that show you're respecting their time. You plan ahead on your meeting objective. What do you want to get out of it? What question you want to ask and why you're asking those, right? And for networking event, similarly, right? Think about a question you want to ask, and don't be shy when you join into a circle as a new person. Introduce yourself and ask your question, but don't dominate the conversation. A lot of times in career events, when I show up representing the company, I usually will also be a good opportunity for me to observe. Some of these could be potential job applicants in the future. How do they deal with in such social dynamics? Do they try to dominate the conversation and not letting other people the opportunity or the time to ask questions? So that will be negative, right? And focus on building reciprocal relationship. As I mentioned, don't think, oh, okay, I just graduated. Oh, I'm a fourth year student. I can offer nothing. But no, by paying attention to the other person you're talking to, at the end of the day, is building relationship, right? For example, sometimes I'm talking to some high school student. They join some interesting leadership conference or program, and then I'll share with them, oh, I have a 9-year-old. Would love to hear your experience in that leadership summer camp or conference, right? So that's the value add that person to me, because I'm a mom. I have a 9-year-old. I also want to, find the best for my son, right? So you have to think broadly in terms of your unique value proposition, as I mentioned earlier. And last thing I would say, surviving networking event as an introvert. I'm an introvert as well. I used to really drag my feet to go to any networking event. What I find useful is sometimes bring a friend who is an extrovert can help, right? So that person may know many people in that event. They could introduce you to other people that will ease you into the circle, as opposed to you go on your own, that you may feel, man, like, what am I doing? How can I break into, is everyone seems to know everyone? You may think that way, but the reality is usually not, right? Many people are just like you. And also research a little bit of some of the people who will be attending, and read up about them if you want to talk to them, right? So these are all good way of surviving networking event. I always play this game with myself when I go to a networking event, especially when I'm tired, that I will set a target that, Rebecca, I need to get 50 name card. Or I need to give out 15 name card. So sometimes when I walk around for rounds, I find, oh man, I really want to leave, but I only get 30 name card. Then I remember, okay, I need 20 more. Let me go out and just talk to people. So kind of gamify the experience to motivate myself to do something that I may not want to do otherwise. And the last thing is repeat, right? Well, first of all, follow-up protocol, right? As I mentioned, sometimes you reach out 100 people, maybe only 25 of them that will respond to you. What's the follow-up protocol? Should I follow up every day? Rebecca, I have sent you an email yesterday. Can we meet? Do you have time? I will say follow up, not every day, but maybe every week. And sometimes when you follow up for 3 times, if that person, for whatever reason, they really don't respond, maybe it's wise to stop, and maybe there is opportunity in the future, or you move on to someone else that you want to connect, right? And also, keep in mind that the network need to be refreshed, or whenever you move from one job to another job, you have to continue to build your network, right? Don't think, oh, I spent a year linking everyone I know on LinkedIn, now I'm done, right? It's never done. It's a forever pursuit. And pay it forward, right? After a couple of years, you're solid and settled in your first job or second job. You become like a middle management. Pay it forward. Help the fresh graduate, right? Just like someone else has helped you a couple years ago. So lastly, I will quickly talk about, as I mentioned in previous session, this is the quite popular and common in North American culture. We call it small talks or the water cooler talk, right? A lot of times, like Asian, including myself, or Chinese, you need to go to the water cooler to get some water, and most of the time, probably we go there quickly and then go back to your desk because I'm busy, I need to work, put my head down. But small talk is not small, right? It's so important. When you bump into people at the water cooler, that's the opportunity to get to know each other better. A lot of time, the conversation, you probably won't ask them, oh, I want to ask you about this project XYZ. Most of the time, the water cooler conversation is really start with small, like, what did you do this weekend? How's your weekend? Or what do you do for the summer? Oh, did you watch the game last night? It start with small non-work related stuff, but it could move to other topic once you build the trust. And also, when you know more about the other person, or when the other person know more about you, right? You have to give and take and share, what you did over the weekend. Then the likability is going to go up. And as I said, trust is built on likability. Once you have the trust, people tend to share more. And like sometimes people will start sharing insights, or, oh, I'm recently working on this cool project. I'd love to pick your brain at some point, Rebecca. So all of these are really the benefit of small talk. And the key about small talk is really ask open-ended question to show your interest to the other people. And what if I have no time? As I mentioned, you have to make time if you want to strengthen your network. So lastly, I'll quickly go through it. As I mentioned, there's some etiquette that I want people to pay attention. First, research, right? And know your purpose, intention, and your value prop. Be on time. Showing up is half of the battle. Following up the right way, not too tight, not too loose. You're introvert, no problem, no excuse. Most important, focus on your curiosity. You're really trying to get to know the person in front of you. And think about win-win. As I mentioned, you have values to the other person. It's not just one way. Be respectful and reasonable. That comes from the preparation you have. And exit gracefully. Don't try to drag on the conversation. Work the room. This is more like networking events, right? You have to go around and every circle will probably spend like 5 to 10 minutes and work around the room, try to meet other people. And don't, on the right hand side, don't just go straight ask for a job the first time you met someone. And late, last minute cancellations, no, these are busy people, not being prepared, dominating the conversation when you're in a circle, sharing too much, right? You wouldn't want to share about, my family has a tough situation. I work so hard, but I cannot get the job, and I need to put food on the table. No, it's not for that kind of networking. And ungrateful and not closing the loop. When you get a referral or someone help you to introduce you to another person, always circle back and just show your appreciation. Like, for example, if Carmen introduced me to Godwin, and after I have a conversation with Godwin, I will send an email back to Carmen. Hey, Carmen, thank you so much for introducing me or connecting me with Godwin. I have an amazing conversation with him. I learned about his journey and really appreciate your time. Don't interrupt, right? This is pretty standard. I hope all of you pay attention to all of these. So with that, I'm gonna stop sharing. I know I
Thank you
go over
so
time.
much, Rebecca, for your so well prepared, and I think it's very inspiring and priceless sharing about networking. We don't normally learn how to do networking from a public speaker, because this is even way more valuable than finding a job. And also, may I ask every participant to fill up the Survey Monkey that I have posted at the chat? Thank you very much. That is your little bit input to the organizers, and a little bit of gratitude to the host. And we do appreciate your feedback. Please fill up the Survey Monkey here or in the main room. Do you have any questions? Any question, you can post it in the chat, and then we will be closing up this session in 1 minute. Is there any question? Well, for me, I learned a lot. I learned A, ow, 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 ow. Ah. You know, I learned to be not just a VIP, but to be a UVP. I learned to be a UVP, unique valued proposition. And I learned to buy coffee for Rebecca or bubble tea for Rebecca. So everyone, once you're done with the Survey Monkey, please leave the room. This session will be closed. I do have a personal interview with Rebecca in another language. Thank you for participating. Please go back to the main room, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.